Hi, my name's Sean Howard, and I'm here to share my Fort Knox of backup strategies. What I want to take you through is the backup strategy that I had in place in 2014 and what the backup strategy that I have in place now. It's very similar with a couple minor tweaks. I wanted to go through this for a number of reasons. The biggest is because I just went through a potential failure and I came very close to actually having a loss of data, and very important photos almost disappeared for a client. And the second part is because I've been reading online a number of photographers making recommendations to other photographers to not worry about this RAID crap and to just not worry about it and just move on and go buy a cheap little 2-drive and power through. So let me start by just showing you what I had in place in 2014, and then I'm going to tell you the story. Okay? So in 2014, I had my little studio computer. I love my studio computer. Everything's great. But then it started to act up a little. It's going a little slow, having some problems. The file system, the finder's locking up, crashing. I'm tempted to figure out what's going on. I'm running diagnostics. Okay, while that's happening, I'm shooting some functions, some really important functions. So I'm doing an event that happens once, never going to happen again. And then I'm doing a page shoot with 2 days, 12 talent, makeup, everything, big production. I'm using the 5D Mark III. I'm shooting CF. So I have my CF card and I'm shooting RAW. And then I also have an SD card in this camera and I'm doing JPEGs to the SD card. So I've got a backup being created in JPEG format. All of my photos, when I import them into my computer, they go into my RAID. And I'm using a Drobo Raid. I love my Drobo. Okay, and there's been some controversy about the Drobo. I'm using an older Drobo, been very solid. Love it. But that's basically a RAID. Don't want to spend a lot of time on what a RAID is. I'll show you in a minute what it looks like, but it's basically 4 drives that act as one. And if one of those drives fails, I pop it out, throw a new drive in really cheaply, and I'm up and running the whole time. No loss of data, no loss of time. I've also got some cloud services running. So, of course, I'm running Dropbox, which I think a lot of us are familiar with Dropbox. And I'm also, I can't do an X. And I'm also doing a backup service for my computer called Backblaze. Okay. And this runs in the background and basically uploads all my files up to the cloud very inexpensively, like $5 a month. I also have an offsite. So every few weeks, my assistant Steven, a friend of mine here in the studio, he'll drive a drive home that I've created of my Drobo. Okay, so I have every few weeks I have a copy of my 57,000 photos that's going offsite. Okay, a current copy. So let me take you quickly through the story. The computer that was sort of starting to melt down, it goes nuclear. It is done. There's just, there's nothing left. Okay. Computer's gone. I'm out there trying to requisition a new computer very quickly. At that same time, I'm taking my laptop, okay, and I'm plugging my laptop into my RAID because I'm like, well, I got a lot of work to do to work on these photos. This starts to melt down. It's no go. Not happening. We are not connecting. The Drobo starts to not even power up. I'm starting to panic a little. The new computer arrives, right? I got the new computer. I've got a nice new Retina iMac. Throwing it in the studio really fast. I'm starting to get up and running. Drobo can't connect to it. Drobo's not going. So I go to my Backblaze. Well, Backblaze failed. It was not backing up that drive. Something went wrong. Turns out it's probably user error, me. But Backblaze was not backing up my Drobo. It was backing up my computer, but I don't really care about that. Okay? So all my raw files aren't in Dropbox, okay? My raw files were basically on my RAID. They're in Backblaze. They're in my offsite. So I basically call Steven. He's bringing in my offsite drive. In the meantime, I go back to my cards. And I'm like, hey, let's go back and pull the raw files off the CF cards on the new computer to a new little, external USB 3 drive. And let's just get going. And one of the cards was empty. It was no reason, it was just empty. Long story short, I actually was able to recover this drive, so I was able to run a recovery program, which you can download off the internet, and get those files off the CF. My offsite arrived, and it was good to go. My offsite had all the files together with the CF card recovery. I was up and running. 3 or 4 days later, my new Drobo arrives, and my Drobo, I put the drives from the old Drobo in the new Drobo enclosure, and it comes up with all the files. I'm back in business. But for a brief period there, I was really scared. When one of those CF cards failed, and my offsite hadn't arrived yet, I actually thought, this could be a fail. What am I going to tell a client? And I want to stop that from ever happening to any of you. So let me take you through in more detail and just talk about some of the stuff I'm doing now. I think it might help you. All right, so here's my setup. Okay, I've got the 5D Mark III. I love my Mark III. Okay. I used to be a Nikon guy. Still love Nikon. Love my Mark III. When I shoot, I'm lucky in that I have 2 cards, right? So I have 2 cards in my 5D Mark III. One of them, my CF card is shooting RAW, and my SD card is shooting JPEG, okay? And that way I have a JPEG backup, and worst case scenario, don't want to work from a JPEG, but it's better than not having the photos. Here's one of the big things. I've now gone out and bought a ridiculous number of 32 and 64 gig SD cards, okay? Because I basically am never going to overwrite those again. There's no reason. I can't even compute how many JPEGs at a full sensor 5D Mark III you can get on a 32 gigs SD card. It's insane. And the number I have, really, it should be like a year or 2 before I have to start overwriting. And that's something I wish I had and done. That's sort of a change I've made, rather than just have that one JPEG card that in there that I overwrite every once in a while. So now, in a worst case scenario, I always have JPEG backups sitting on an SD card. Okay, that's sort of the one thing I'm really changing in 2015. But let me take you through the rest. So to my computer, I have my Drobo. So this is my Raid. And I'm sort of flabbergasted that I'm reading these forums where people are recommending other photographers, or photographers are recommending to other photographers not to worry about a Raid. The Drobo has saved my life a number of times. I'm just working along, and one of these lights will just go red. It'll be like fail. It'll just start flashing. My Drobo will come up with a little message on my screen. It'll be like, hey Sean, there's a problem. No big deal. It says you can keep using the files, keep on going, but you should replace that drive. Because basically what it's saying is, your drive just failed. If I had had just a single, little like a USB drive like a lot of us have sitting there, like it just would have been gone. That's it. The data's gone. It's saying that drive just died, but you can keep using your photos. So I just keep using Lightroom, keep moving along. But I make a note, okay, pick up a new drive today or tonight. Next morning, spend my $80, open the front of the case, pull the old drive out, throw the new drive in, everything goes yellow because it's rebuilding the RAID, and then within an hour or 2, I'm back to normal. Okay, so it's a little slow while it's rebuilding, but I can still keep using it and accessing those files, and that's critical. There's no downtime. Okay, so that's my basic setup, and I think if you had this as a starting setup, you're good, but you are not protected. And I've met a number of photographers that have a RAID or a bunch of drives and a computer and nothing else and some cards. All of these can fail. All of these will fail. And just so you know, these fail too. So these SD and CF cards will fail at some point, okay? Everything fails. So your RAID protects you from one drive going down, but what happens if your entire Drobo unit goes down? My Drobo unit was about 5 years old, and it just had a problem. It went down, and I lost access to all those drives. So let's layer in the other layers. Anybody that works in data security or data recovery will tell you to have an offsite. But it's hard to get in the practice of doing that. But you really have to start thinking about it. I love SuperDuper. It is the most amazing program in the world because it's so easy to use. And you can set it on a schedule, and it speeds up how quickly it can make a copy of any drive. So I think it's a 3 or, some crazy sized drive. And every once in a while, it comes here. And I really should have 2 that I cycle back and forth, but I bring it in. I basically run SuperDuper, and it takes my RAID, any changed files, and throws them on there. And then this drive goes back to an offsite location, not mine. If there's a fire and my house burns down, I'm going to lose a week, 2 weeks at max, but all those stuff is a safe offsite, and I can pull it back and start again. Okay, you cannot match that. Okay, it's available, it's fast, it's there. Highly recommend you guys think about an offsite. And then I have a number of things in the cloud, so let's pull those up and talk about those. Okay, so the second change for 2015 is I've really sat down and figured out my Backblaze, and I've made sure that it's backing up my Drobo. Okay, so this Drobo is now being backed up to the cloud, and the big change here was Rogers. I don't know if any of you are in Canada, but I killed that and I went with a better, faster internet connection where I'm getting true 10 megabit up, and it is flying. Like, I'm actually getting all my stuff backed up to the cloud. Okay, so this is sort of just peace of mind, knowing that every night, every day, every file I add, it's being put into a queue, and Backblaze is slowly moving it up to the cloud and storing it there. And guys, this is so cheap. I think it's like $5 a month. Okay, can't make a dollar sign here. Blah. Okay, but $5 a month. Okay, you cannot beat that. You pay a little bit more when you want them to ship you a drive if something goes wrong, but it's just worth it to know that your files are being backed up slowly. Okay, PixieSet is an amazing client site that I use for proofing, where I basically upload all the photos and let clients select, choose them, download them, and I upload full res JPEGs to PixieSet. Okay, and that way, in a worst case scenario, I also have all my full res JPEGs processed up on PixieSet that I can grab down at any time. One of my friends, Chris Luckard, I think uses Flickr, and he creates private groups, whatever you do in Flickr. He creates private, whatever they're called, albums, and then he uploads his full res there as well to back them up there. And then I use Dropbox as well. So I've got some of my full res JPEGs also going to Dropbox. Okay, so I basically just have a bunch of these in the cloud. But basically, this is my Fort Knox of backup strategies, and it's not all that expensive. So look at the cost here. Cards, you need to have them. Just make sure you have enough. I've got, this is like, I don't know, like a $150 drive that I got offsite with a friend, staying at his house. I'm not paying for offsite, just at his house. If the odds of both houses burning down are pretty low. Okay, and then my RAID, I think you can get this RAID for around $450, and then you just got to put 4 drives in it. You can get those drives for about $80 each. My RAID right now is a 17 terabyte RAID. I think I'm only using like 6 terabytes of that. Okay, and then Dropbox and PixieSet, there's an annual fee. I'm paying around $80 a year for both of those, right? For both of these, around $80. And then Backblaze, I'm paying, I think, around $5 a month or less. It might even be less. I think I bought it for 2 years. So really, the cost is not what stops us from having a good backup strategy. It's just putting all this in place and being consistent. But let me tell you, when you're starting to do productions that really can't be replaced, I don't think any of us want to go there where we have to call in a lawyer and say, what happens when I drop, I have a failure and I've lost these files. I certainly don't want to ever have to go to a client and say I've lost those files. So there we go. So this is what I had in place in 2014, with the exception of, I've changed how I'm doing my SD JPEGs, so they're always there, and I've updated my Backblaze. So that's what I recommend. Love to know what you guys think and whether this was helpful. So you can find out more, see some of my photography, and join my newsletter and get a copy of my free book at seanhoward.ca.